Hi everyone. Okay, so today in class we talked about the three levels of society within France during the late 1700s. You had the first and the second and third estate. We also talked about how there was a lot of inequality just among the estates in general in society, but also politically there were a lot of unfair things that were going on. We talked about how Louis the 16th, he needed to call the Estates General, which hadn't been called for about 175 years, in order to raise taxes because he ran out of money. So when he called the Estates General, every estate was represented, but they were represented unfairly. If you remember, we talked about how the Third Estate, even though they made up 97% of the population, they only got one vote, and how the First and the Second Estates, they were 1% and 2% of the population, and they each got one vote. And we know from the First and Second Estate that they had a lot of the same privileges. So they always kind of sided with one another and helped one another, and they always outvoted the Third Estate. They did not want the Third Estate to have any rights or to gain any rights. So there was that serious problem within the Estates General that came, that people recognized when Louis the XVI brought back the Estates General in order to raise taxes. So because of this inequality, the members of the Third Estate, they were so upset that they decided to break away. They're going to break away from the Estates General, and it's like they almost form a government within a government. Okay, so you have this group of people who are going to sit down and come up with these demands for the king, and for the king to kind of make concessions and to kind of make reforms. So that's the goal of this. That's the goal of this National Assembly. Is what they want to do is essentially they want to restrict the king's power. And if you think about what happened in England, when they restricted the king's power, it became a limited monarchy. And that's kind of what France wants right now. They don't want a republic just yet. They do not want to get rid of their monarchy, their king or their queen. They just want some form of a limited monarchy. So that is their goal. And of course, Louis XVI, when he hears about this, he's very nervous. He does not want to lose any power. Remember how unsure of himself he is? He doesn't really know how to respond to these kinds of things, these kinds of demands that the National Assembly is going to be making. He does, however, agree to let the National Assembly meet. So they are going to have these meetings to kind of talk about reform. But on one of the very first days that they go to meet, they realize they're meeting at Versailles. So everyone's at the Palace of Versailles. There are a bunch of different buildings where they have all these conference rooms and these big grand rooms where they're going to meet. So the third estate, now the National Assembly, they are going to meet at one of these buildings. And when they go to one of their first meetings, they actually find that they're locked out. And immediately, they know that Louis XVI isn't necessarily a big fan of them meeting, and they know immediately, or they think immediately, that Louis XVI is responsible for this lockout. Okay, they all think that he has locked the doors, so they cannot go in, and so they cannot meet. Okay, and because of this outrage, because of this anger that it causes amongst the National Assembly members, the very first thing that they do is that they look for a place where they can meet and they can decide on what restrictions they are going to put on the king. This is known as the tennis court oath. The first thing, and the reason why it's the tennis court oath, is because the first building that they can come across that's unlocked that they can go into and have a discussion is a handball court. Okay, and then it's just kind of, it morphed into the tennis court oath, even though it was actually a handball court. And at this handball court, they state that, you know what, we are not, oh, here it is, we are not going to stop meeting, we're not going to disband until we come up with a new constitution that has rights for the Third Estate members. Okay, and this is the first time, if you look at this second bullet, this is the first time that royal authority has been bypassed within France. Okay, so they have gone and decided on their own. The people have decided that they are going to make changes without the monarch's say. Okay, and keep in mind that this National Assembly that has been formed, it's not just Third Estate members. Okay, they are the ones that initiate this group, but then they gain support actually from certain clergy members and from certain nobles who agree that reform is necessary within the States General. Okay, and because of this, Louis XVI sees himself as losing a little bit of support. Okay, because you have some members of clergy and you have some members of the nobility going to the National Assembly and joining the Third Estate to kind of hold these meetings and decide on what to do about reform. Okay, so the tennis court oath in July 1789 is when they sit back and they make this decision that they are not going to meet until, or they're not going to stop meeting. I'm sorry, they're not going to stop meeting until a new constitution has been drawn up. So you have this all going on in 1789 in Versailles. Now Paris is a whole different story. Paris is north of Versailles, about a half hour away. And you've got all this information flowing into Paris from Versailles, all these rumors, all these stories about what is going on. And it makes Parisians, which are people from Paris, it makes them very nervous. Especially the rumors, there are rumors going around that Louis XVI is actually going to kind of assert his control within the capital, okay, within Paris. And he's going to send troops in order to do this. So Louis XVI, the rumor is that he is going to send royal troops to Paris to kind of seize control of the capital, which is there, and to seize control of government buildings, which are there. And so, in order to stop this, the Parisians, the people living within Paris, they are going to look for weapons. They're going to look for a way to stop these troops, and the only way they can really think about doing it is by finding their own weapons and arming themselves. Okay, so where they go to arm themselves is called the Bastille. It's Bastilles. It is an old prison that's been around for hundreds of years. Voltaire was prisoned there. Supposedly, I talked to some of you guys about the Man in the Iron Mask. You know, Louis XIV. He was supposedly imprisoned there. So it's a very famous prison, and it's very well known for being like this prison of torture and horribleness, and prisoners are treated horribly, and they're tortured to death in this prison. So it's a very scary, very strong, I guess, symbol of the monarch's power. And they know that there is a stockpile of weaponry, or they think that there is a stockpile of weaponry within this Bastille. So they take it, they organize themselves. The first time that the people do this, they organize themselves and they storm the Bastille. And they're able, we're going to look at a reading tomorrow, they're able to actually storm it successfully. And unfortunately, the only two things, they kill a bunch of guards. And, you know, with these murdered guards, they cut off, they're so enraged and they're so angry at the monarchy. And they're so impassioned by the fact that they are making their way into the Bastille, and they're able to free prisoners, and you know they're killing guards. They chop off the guards' heads and they put them on wooden stakes and they parade them around the city, and many people die. And it's kind of like the first outbreak of violence of the French Revolution is the storming of the Bastille. And you know there are stories about how they take it down, the Bastille, brick by brick. These people, and they destroy this symbol of the monarch's power. And this actually becomes the symbol of the whole French Revolution. This first demolition of Louis XVI, the French monarch's power. You know, the people have taken control themselves and they've asserted themselves, and it shows them how powerful that the common man can actually be, and it gives them this huge sense of pride, and it really encourages them to go forward and to fight for more rights. Okay, and that all happens with just the storming of the Bastille. And you know what? Their very first goal was to gain weapons. There were actually no weapons within the prison, so that was kind of a big fail. But the outcome and the meaning of what this was, the storming, it kind of helped them tenfold with inspiration, and with kind of showing the monarch and showing the nobility that the people actually have power. And of course, they say they they freed a couple prisoners, but it was like this crazy guy who thought he was the Pope and somebody else. So the that's beside the point. They really used it as fuel for their fire. Okay, so that's what's going on within Paris. The National Assembly, this is their chance. Like they see that the clergy and the nobility have been scared by this, and even the monarchy is a little nervous by this. And so, what the first and the estate, the first and second estate, what they decide to do is they decide to give some concessions. Okay, and what those concessions are, a few of them are. Um, the right to taxation. So now they are agreeing to be taxed. New hunting rights, that has to do with their land. Remember, I talked about the landed nobility. Um, peasants were not allowed to hunt on nobles' land or clergy land or the monarchy's land. Okay, so it's like you've got this huge famine with this huge lack of bread, and they can't even go hunting. They can't even hunt a rabbit for food because they'd be hunting it on the noble's land. So now the nobility is giving them new hunting rights, so they are able to hunt and they are able to provide food for their families. And then the next thing that they agree to is citizen equality. Okay, which has to do with the taxation, and it has to do with equality before the law, like knowing what you're being arrested for, knowing that just because you're a noble, you can't buy your way out of a crime. Okay, you've got the courts that are going to treat everyone equal. Okay, so on August 23rd, 1789, an important date, the National Assembly adopts the Declaration of the Rights of Man, and within this declaration, it outlines all of the French citizens' rights as first, second, and third estate members. Okay, and this becomes what they want to see as their constitution. So the Declaration of the Rights of Man is what the goal of the National Assembly is, and the response to this, Louis XVI, okay, he's found that he has lost support from his nobility, from some of his nobility and from some of the clergy. It kind of makes him a little nervous, this lack of support, so he actually agrees to the Declaration of the Rights of Man. He says, okay, you know what, you can have this, we can instill these rights, you can have equality before the law, you can have these hunting rights, okay, there will be taxation. But unfortunately, the people, especially the very passionate members of the National Assembly who are very emboldened by the storming of the Bastille and the things that they can do within their country. They're very skeptical of this support, and rightfully so, because Louis XVI, just like Charles I, kind of ignores the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Okay. Now the Declaration, the kind of things that are stated within the Declaration of the Rights of Man are, like I said, for all men now, so first, second, and third estate, because now all men are created equal. Okay, so it's really it's based off of the American Declaration of Independence. Okay, that all men are born free and equal. That's where they got the ideas from America and the American Revolution. It was intended to bring France from this absolute monarchy to a constitutional monarchy, like we saw in England. And it gave, we looked at a couple of provisions that it had with equality before the law and the hunting rights, and they listed many more rights that we are going to look at more in depth tomorrow and maybe Friday. Okay, but that's where we're going to leave off. So we have successfully changed the government within France as of right now, and we think that potentially that's it. We've got this new declaration. The monarchy has agreed to it, even though he isn't 100% honest that he's going to follow through. But we're thinking as National Assembly members that we have had a success, that we have successfully reformed, and that everything's just going to continually get better and better for us as time goes on. Okay, so that's where we are going to leave off today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.